understand why. But the uncomfortable conversations are extremely important as we deal with this age group. We want to make sure that we are addressing their needs and any deficiencies or stressors that we might see that we can help them with. And that's where this workshop came out of. And I was just going to turn it over to Dr. Siegel for a minute or two to speak about Parent University, the complexities of what she's offered so far, and what else she might offer this year. So, Dr. Siegel.
Thank you, Dr. Kozine. And hi, everybody, and welcome. It's such a pleasure to be here tonight. Parent University is an idea that we've had for quite a few years, and we're very happy to be implementing now. So much of the work that we do is with parents and helping and supporting them through the these very difficult times and challenging times for us. So we've had 2 parent circle events so far where we were talking about how to encourage autonomy and independence in our children and helping them to learn and through failure and celebrate the gift of failure. And we have other events like the webinar tonight, and we look forward to future events. Our next event during the day will be on February 14th. That will also be available through streaming or recording. And that's going to be where Mr. Mike Neary, who is the department head of guidance at North High School, is going to join us. And we're going to present about the curriculum and course offerings, not just in the middle school, but also in the high school and trajectory, and where your child, the opportunities that will exist for your child. So we hope you could join us there on February 14th. So thank you so much for being here. And at this point, I will turn it over to Dr. Fusco.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We are going to share our presentation on self-harm. So Dr. Kozine, if you don't mind pulling up the presentation for us, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So again, I'm Dr. Fusco. I'm one of the school psychologists at North Middle, and we also have Ms. Murad, who's our school social worker. And as Dr. Kozine and Dr. Siegel said, we feel it's really important to discuss some of these difficult issues. Unfortunately, it's something that we've seen a rise in, and we want our parents to be aware of it, parents to be aware of signs, ways that they can help their student and their children, and ways that we are there for you guys to help as well. So we hope that this is really helpful for you guys. Thank you. So first, what is self-harm? So it is when someone deliberately hurts themselves as a way of coping with a painful or strong emotion without the intent to end their life. It is important to know that, unfortunately, sometimes it can happen that they do end up ending their life, which is why it's also such a serious and scary thing that we need to talk about and discuss, because while they might not intend on ending their life, you never know. God forbid, kids can do something the wrong way or something could happen, and we want to prevent them from hurting themselves in the first place, but also from ending their life. And some common examples of what self-harm could look like would be cutting, burning, pulling your own hair, pulling it out, or picking your skin, picking your cuticles, picking at it. Sometimes students might use another, like a needle or something to pick at their skin. So there's unfortunately lots of different ways that a child might self-harm. So one really important thing that we wanted to talk about was a common myth about self-harm, that asking a teen about self-harm will cause self-harm. And there's absolutely zero data to support this. It does not put in their head, oh, you talked about self-harm, so I'm going to self-harm. And this is a little off topic, but it's similar to suicide, which has been a myth as well, that a lot of parents think if I bring up suicide or I talk about it, my kid will try or commit suicide, and that there's just no proof, no data. it actually is more helpful to talk to them about it so that your child is aware of what it is and what could cause it, what harm it could do. So I really want to stress that it's not something to worry about, that you would lead your child to self-harm if you asked about it. And it is really important to ask the questions and to practice asking. And again, we recognize how difficult this is. We're all parents here, and it's a really scary thing to ask your child, have you thought about harming yourself, or have you harmed yourself? But that question could save their lives. And, again, it's difficult, but just practicing in the mirror sometimes, or practicing with your spouse on how to ask it, is a really, really important thing to do to get the conversation going. So why do children engage in self-harm? So some students or some children say that they have been feeling so desperate about a problem. They don't know where to turn for help. They might feel really trapped and helpless. So these individuals feel as if they have more control when they engage in self-harm. Sometimes, students might feel like all the control is with their parents or at school, or everyone else is in control. And unfortunately, this is something that gives them a sense of control. It also relieves tension from anger and strong emotions that are bottled up inside. Individuals who have engaged in self-harm have talked about feeling like it's too much, and it almost gives like a release when they do engage in self-harm, because unfortunately they don't have the coping skills, which are things that we will talk about, but that's the only thing they can think of to kind of release these strong emotions that they might be having. Another thing is punishing oneself due to immense guilt or shame. And this could literally be about anything. Unfortunately, kids put a lot of guilt on themselves for the tiniest thing, like maybe not doing well on a test, or, doing something that they thought was embarrassing in class, or offending a friend. So they might feel like they deserve some sort of punishment. And unfortunately, another common cause is feeling more connected and feeling more alive. So some people try to cope with very upsetting experiences, some kind of trauma or some kind of abuse, and they convince themselves that this trauma has never happened, or they might feel so numb. And the only way to not feel numb is to cause yourself pain. And unfortunately, that's the only way they can figure a way to feel connected and more alive. So some risk factors for self-harm. So mental health issues, really big ones. So someone who is highly self-critical, teenagers and young adults are most likely to self-injure. It starts early. It could start in preteens, early teen years. It's so scary to think, someone as young as 11 could be doing self-harm, but unfortunately we have seen that. And during these times, they feel an increase in peer pressure, sometimes loneliness and conflicts with parents or authority figures. So when they're highly self-critical, if they're having struggles with problem solving, any sort of depression, anxiety, some form of PTSD. And, I know typically most people associate PTSD, with our veterans, but it could be from any kind of trauma that they've endured in life, or something that was difficult for them can lead to PTSD. An eating disorder or a borderline personality disorder are some mental health issues that can lead to risk factors for self-harm. Some life issues. So again, a traumatic event can trigger a sense of wanting to hurt themselves, or again, the feeling of something. Individuals that might be questioning their personal or sexual identity, and some form of social isolation. And a close friend who engages in self-injury. Unfortunately, friends talk, and they might hear from a friend that they did it and they enjoyed it, and they might get curious and try it themselves. And we also put alcohol and drug use on here, just in case any parents have older children, not in middle school. This is a common risk factor as well for self-harm. So some behavioral signs that are really important to look out for if you are concerned about your child engaging in self-harm. So if you notice that they're wearing clothes that always cover their arms and legs, especially, you know, in warmer weather when it wouldn't be appropriate for them to wear such long clothing, it's typically a sign that they're trying to cover up. If they're avoiding any activity in which their legs, arms, or torso can be seen. Many people don't realize, but it's not just the arm that people might be cutting or trying to do injuries to. It can be on the thighs, sometimes on the torso, because that's an area that's very easily hidden. So for example, if they engage in like a swim meet, or, you know, on the beach, if they're always covered up, that's something to look out for. If you start to notice things that are missing in the house, like razor blades, knives, lighters, or scissors, it's important to kind of keep track of those items because they can just grab them and you wouldn't really know. If you notice that they might be using a lot of Band-Aids and antiseptics, that could be a sign that they're trying to cover it up and, you know, tend to their wounds. Changes in their sleep and or eating patterns, a loss in interest in activities that they typically enjoy. And this is related to depression as well. So if you start to see that, you know, they might be feeling down, they might be feeling more isolated, like when they stop to seeing their friends, because this is also a way of avoiding anyone seeing their arms, legs, or torso as well. Some form of school avoidance could be a behavior sign. They don't want to be at school, they don't want to be around people, more isolation. Or a significant drop in performance at school because, you know, it's something that is really eating them up. And if they're going through a difficult time, it's really hard for them to focus on academics. So some emotional signs to be aware of if you're concerned about your child engaging in self-harm, changes in their mood. If they're typically, you know, a very outgoing, carefree, happy child, and you notice a big shift, that's really important to take note of. Increased irritability, emotional outbursts. If you start to notice that your child might be feeling sad or empty or hopeless, feelings of worthlessness, again, those feelings of guilt. And again, if they stop caring about their appearance, if they were someone who typically did, and then you notice, again, that's more of like the clothing as well. If they were someone who typically was wearing, you know, maybe stuff that showed off their arms, and now all of a sudden they're wearing really baggy clothes, or they just don't really care what they look like. They've given up on kind of the outside because they're so focused on the hurt and pain that they're feeling on the inside. And some physical signs of self-harm. So having injuries that they can't and or won't explain. So if you notice a cut and they kind of get defensive, or they don't really have a very good reason for how it happened, or the reason they give doesn't really make sense. Or if you know, see that they have low energy or they appear tired. So these are all signs to look out for and to be aware of if you're concerned about self-harm. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Murad now.
Thank you, Dr. Fusco. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about, you know, what can you do? So how can a parent help with prevention? You know, more times than not, self-injury is often kept secret, but there might be some clues. So, you know, as we touched on, if your child seems upset, withdrawn, or irritable, you might want to encourage them to talk about their worries, take the worries seriously, whether they seem important or not to you. You know, you want to show them that you're listening, offer sympathy and understanding, and try and, you know, work with them to solve or come up with ways to solve things that might be, you know, standing in their way. You also want to consider getting some help if family problems or arguments continue to upset you or your child. And what to do if your child is engaging in self-harm. So, you know, you want to listen. You want to address the behavior as soon as possible, as soon as you discover it. You want to ask open-ended questions like, tell me what happened. How long have you been feeling this way? You also want to potentially ask them about suicide, if they're thinking about it, if they've ever thought about it, because it is not uncommon sometimes if somebody is cutting that those thoughts have crossed their mind. So you do want to ask about that. You want to talk to your child with respect and compassion and be calm, even though you might be panicked. You want to try and be calm. And you want to also understand that oftentimes when somebody is engaging in self-harm, it is their way potentially of coping with something or things that might be stressing them out. You want to protect. So, of course, if there's an immediate medical emergency, you want to take care of that, whether it's going to a hospital or a doctor, whatever it may be. You also want to connect. So become familiar with support that is available at home, at school, in your community. It's not something that you have to go at alone. You want to foster a protective environment at home so that your child feels like they can talk to you about topics that might be very sensitive or difficult. You also want to, set limits and provide supervision so that, they feel that support as well, and they know that somebody is kind of looking after them. And you want to model healthy and safe ways of managing stress. So that could be going for a walk, listening to music, drawing, writing, anything that might take, your mind or your child's mind off of, what they're thinking about. And then you want to teach. You want to teach your child how to ask for help and help them identify adults that they can trust at home and at school. And if they're on a sports team or if they're engaged in an extracurricular activity, those adults can be trusted people for them as well. Okay, so if you find that your child is engaging in self-harm, it's best to speak calmly, directly, and without judgment. So you might want to say things like, I can see that you're upset, or I hadn't realized that things had, gotten to this point. You can talk to me about this. I won't get angry at you. And again, if there is a need for medical assistance, you want to take care of that as soon as possible. But you also want to stress the fact that you're going to get them help for emotional support as well. You want to let them know that having strong feelings are normal, and sometimes it might be uncomfortable to have those feelings, but it's important that they develop strategies to deal with those in a healthy way, as opposed to engaging in self-harm. And of course, like we said before, if you discover that your child has really hurt themselves, you need to call 911 or, go to the nearest emergency room. So as Dr. Kozine said in the beginning, some of the conversations that we need to have with our kids as parents can be very difficult. And I would imagine that talking about self-harm would be one of those conversations that's difficult to have. So if you, sense that your child, or that your child is engaging in it, you can say something like, I noticed the scars on your arm. Can you tell me, when you hurt yourself or how you hurt yourself? And again, it's very important to remain calm, listen, and try not to interrupt, which again, as parents, especially when we're upset, we might want to jump in right away. But it's really important to hear what our children are telling us. You can also say something like, the fact that you're self-harming tells me you're very upset. You might not like the fact that I found out. I'm not going to ask you a lot of questions, but I do want to help. So you kind of have to, again, this is like modeling for your child, say, we don't have to go into every single detail right now, but we need to have a conversation because I'm worried about, your safety. coping strategies for self-harm. You want to ask them to seek you out if they need assistance in distracting them from their thoughts, or if they feel the urge to, to hurt themselves. You could do some mindfulness activities or breathing exercises or muscle relaxation. You can find a lot online, YouTube. There are several apps, that can give you all kinds of information that you can, share with your child. They might even know some. Going for a walk, getting outside for fresh air is always helpful. And like we said, doing something creative, such as drawing or writing, playing music, watching a movie, all of those things, can help distract a child if they're feeling like they want to hurt themselves. Okay, so it's important to know what resources there are. And I'm going to kind of go out of order here a little bit. So Nassau County has something called a mobile crisis team. And the phone number is 516-227-TALK. And that's something that's used in a crisis. So let's say your child is having some kind of, emotional or behavioral outburst. You think they might need intervention. You might need some support. They might need to go to the emergency room, not for a medical reason. You can call. This is a 24-hour hotline. You're connected to, a social worker or, a therapist, and they will actually come to your house and intervene and help you. So that's something good to just know about. Also, Long Island Crisis Center runs also a 24-hour-a-day hotline. Kids can text it, they can call. I have students that utilize this at times, and they're connected to, again, a trained person that can help talk them through whatever might be going on for them. And those two things are used for instances that might not necessarily be self-harm or self-harm, but you can call for a variety of things. And then it's important, to consider getting support from an outside therapist. Great Neck Public Schools has partnered with the Outpatient Pediatric Behavioral Health Urgent Care in Mineola. It's a long name, but essentially it is like going to an urgent care if you had a sore throat, but this is for any, emotional issues. And they have social workers and psychologists and psychiatrists. They can provide access to mental health services for children and adolescents. For urgent mental health support, they can also help connect you and your family to some outside counseling. So it's a really, really great resource that the school district has. And any one of us in the counseling center is able to fill out a referral form. So if you, need to go or want to go, we can help you with that and kind of give them a heads up that you might be coming. And again, that's for if it's regarding self-harm or any other emotional issue. And then a local resource for outside counseling is North Shore Child and Family Guidance. They have a lot of satellite clinics. They're located in Roslyn. They take a variety of health insurances, and they also have social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists. They do individual counseling, group counseling. So just another way for you to connect your child and your family to any resources you may need. And if you'd ever like to get in touch with Dr. Fusco or I, this is how you can do it. And certainly you can always reach any of the school counselors or, myself, the psychologists at North Middle anytime.
Thank you, Ms. Murad. And again, folks, I should have announced a little bit earlier, we do have a Q&A button down at the bottom. So if you have any questions, feel free to type those in. We'll stay on for a few more minutes. We'll take any questions that you might have. I want to thank Dr. Fusco, Ms. Murad, for taking their time this evening to have a conversation with our parents. Nothing about what we do in education is easy these days. Nothing about what you do as parents is easy these days, but we are a partnership. And so these kind of collegial conversations about how we can help our children, how we can help each other really are important. And there's also, we talked about role modeling. They see the collaboration between parents and the school. That's really important for them to see that. That's something that they can ultimately model in their interactions with you as their parent, with the school as their educators and their family away from you, as well as with each other. So being able to have those open conversations is really important. There's a question there. I don't know if anyone can see that from the, so I'll let someone take
Yeah.
that, Dr. Fusco.
I can see that. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Kozine. So somebody asked, should the desire to get tattoos be considered as a desire to self-harm? Nope. And it's a very good question. I can understand why, there would be concern about that, but absolutely not a concern. And it's never been something that has shown a need for self-harm. It's actually just I know middle school kids shouldn't want to get tattoos, but it's just a way of expressing oneself and not a way to hurt themselves, and doesn't lead to injury. So it's not something to be worried about in terms of self-harm, but it's a very good question.
I also want to add, it's not a question, but even if your child shows some of the signs of, being withdrawn or moody or irritable, doesn't necessarily mean that they are engaging in self-harm. But I think, at the end of the day, the most important thing is to keep the lines of communication open with your children, because that's how you're most likely going to find out what's on their mind, what's going on, and hopefully help them.
And I think what Dr. Fusco and Ms. Murad talked about, the reaction that we do have, if indeed we do find out that there is self-harm that's taking place, that it's not an over-the-top reaction, although the very nature of that aspect of our most precious belonging hurting him or herself can be overwhelming. We have to remember that they're looking to see how we respond as well. And it's a challenge, but keep in mind that you have the support of professionals at the school. We have an amazing resources throughout our community, and you have other parents that you can speak to. But please never ever hesitate to reach out to the school. We're just part of your family. I know that Dr. Fusco and Ms. Murad have their contact information here, but we also are available basically unfortunately 24/7 nowadays via email. But we're here for you to reach out to. And if we're not available at any time, there's all those numbers that were listed earlier that we really think are important for our families to have throughout Great Neck. So there aren't any more questions. This was recorded. We will post this as well. I won't tell you to like us if you liked the presentation, but I will tell you to reach out to any friends that you might have that weren't able to make it this evening. Share some of the information, let them know that the video will be available. And let us know through reaching out to building administration, to the counseling center, about what other topics might be of interest to parents. We see a lot that's going on in the course of the school day. We do, but we're not in your homes. We want to know if there are other things that we can be helping you with. So please don't hesitate to reach out to North Middle School. We are ultimately going to be stronger if we're helping each other. So I don't know if Dr. Fusco, Dr. Siegel, or Ms. Murad, do you have anything to say before I close out for the evening? But I do want to thank the three of you for being here this evening.
Just thank you guys for being here, and anyone watching. And as Dr. Kozine said, please always reach out. We are always here to help. And, your kids are our kids when they're in our building. So we want to keep them safe, happy, healthy. So we're always here for you.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Have an amazing evening. Be well and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.